the Wright Perspective. We need you to stop what you're doing right now and like, share, subscribe, okay? Whatever platform you're using, audio, video, subscribe, okay? And we need you to do it on every platform that you use to engage with us. We need them likes, okay? Make it happen, please. We love you, okay? And today,
listen, and shout out to
if you ever want to know what it's like to be Genia sibling, you just got a little.
And shout out to the 600 followers on Facebook.
Yes.
Where did y'all come from? And invite your cousins.
We appreciate every single last one.
All of you.
Yeah.
All of you.
And y'all, you know, today the movie we're going to recap and review is really something that was on rotation in our childhood home. Big
Indeed.
time.
Very
Big
much so.
time.
This is one
Mary
I remember.
Poppins.
How could you not?
Mary Poppins, the 1964 Walt Disney musical fantasy starring Julie Andrews, okay? And featuring Dick Van Dyke, David Tomlinson, and Glynis Johns in supporting roles. The film was directed by Robert Stevenson, and it was with songs written and composed by the Sherman Brothers. And it's no mistake that we chose this movie for this particular episode, because this month, October, is Julie Andrews' birthday month. And so we love you, Julie Andrews, and we want to say happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Many happy childhood memories.
Many. And y'all, this film, which, you know, it combined live action and animation, you know, so it was really important in that way. But it was actually Julie Andrews. It was her first feature film. So it was her feature film debut. And it was the highest grossing film of 1964. And at the time of its release, it was Disney's highest grossing film ever. Okay. It made $103.1 million on $4.4 to $6 million budget. It ended up receiving a total of 13 Academy Award nominations. It won 5. It was nominated for 4 Golden Globes. It won 1.
Wow.
In 2013, the film was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Okay. And, you know, there is a stage musical called Mary Poppins. Okay. And it is, in terms of the actual content, it pulled from the original source materials, which was a series of children's books. Mary Poppins, a series of children's books by an author named P.L. Travers. But it also pulled from this film, from the 1964 film, and it's a fusion of both. And it definitely included songs from the film, so songs that were originally performed by Julie Andrews. It started in London in 2004, and it was in Broadway. On Broadway in New York from 2006 to 2013. So the legacy of Mary Poppins, y'all, it just continues. It's present. There was actually a sequel that came out in 2018 called Mary Poppins Returns, starring Emily Blount. So, you know, the legacy of Mary Poppins, it just continues. And for some, these facts would be enough to consider this movie a classic. But today, we will determine whether it is a classic from the Wright perspective. We'll do a recap, we'll discuss the movie, and then we'll take a vote using a voting symbol that we pick especially for this discussion. But we got to start with intros. Kick us off, bro.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Wright. I'm the oldest.
I'm Genia Wright. I'm the middle.
I'm Brittany Wright, and I'm the youngest.
There is only one possible symbol.
Okay, only what is it?
It's the umbrella. It has to be the umbrella. And it's not just, I mean.
What makes you say the umbrella?
Well, first of all, the umbrella is iconic in when it comes to Mary Poppins. Just like even in that recent, I forget which, I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I think it was 2 or 3, I can't remember. But when he looked like Mary Poppins because he was in the same position, and he didn't know he was an alien, of course. And so when they told him, "You look like Mary Poppins," he was like, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all." You know, in that movie, because that position of floating on the umbrella is synonymous with it. But not only that, in the movie, when the umbrellas are present for everybody, which is another thing, just umbrellas all around. And then when they were, I forget, I'm blanking on his name for whatever reason, but the dad, Mr. Banks. I don't know how that blanked on that, but when they were excommunicating him,
they have to
the first thing they did was to
that was so funny.
It's like, what
it's
is
like,
happening right now?
To teach him a valuable lesson.
It was just like, what is the worst thing we can do to you? We'll flip this umbrella.
And then they punched a hole in the top of his head.
And then he punched a hole in his head. But I'm just saying.
Who even imagined that scene? I'm sorry. Hilarious.
Anything not to make you look like a proper gentleman anymore.
Yes. You're now a scoundrel.
You're a scoundrel.
That's right. And at the end, when the movie was wrapping up, who was she talking to? She was talking to the umbrella and they were giving the major morals of, she was like, the kids have forgotten about you. But it's like the kids have forgotten about you. And she's like, yeah, that's the point. The point of me being here was so that I don't need to be here. That's why I'm here. And that was so even on the philosophical Genia side, you still got the umbrella. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I absolutely thought the umbrella or the boots, because
the boots could have been a contender.
It's iconic with her feet being completely, I don't even know what is that position called when your feet are completely straight out like that?
Demi-plie. I don't know if that was right.
I think that's like first position. Isn't that first position?
It could be.
I don't know.
Listen, whatever it is.
Weren't you in ballet for like 3 weeks?
I definitely had a little stint. Yeah. I had a little stint.
Seemed like you should know that. But no, Brad, I didn't think about that, but the boots could have been
not 3 weeks in elementary school. She should know that.
But the boots could have been good. The boots could have been good too. I didn't think about that, because that position and the turned up, that is also very, very much Mary Poppins.
Well, but I agree. The umbrella's good.
I'm sold. I'm sold. I love it. It sounds like Britt, you're in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, y'all, there you have it. Our voting symbol will be the umbrella. Y'all, in order for this movie to be considered a classic from the right perspective, it will need to receive not 1, not 2, but 3 umbrellas. And if it receives 3 umbrellas, it will be considered a classic from the right perspective. Now, we'll kick off right now. Before we get into our discussion, we will do a recap, and that is because, just like as usual, this content is old and dusty. Okay, we stay doing old dusty content on the Wright Perspective Podcast, and sometimes people haven't seen the content in a while, or they haven't seen it at all, and they still want to enjoy the podcast. So we do a spoiler-filled recap at the top, so we're all on the same page for the conversation. So let's do a quick recap here. Mary Poppins takes place in 1910, and it tells the story of the Banks family. The father, George Banks, who is played by David Tomlinson, is a banker that over-indexes on work and believes in an orderly home and orderly children. The mother, played by Glynis Johns, is a suffragette that is always running off to some protest or another. The household also includes a cook, a maid, and a nanny. At the beginning of the movie, the 2 children, Jane, played by Karen Dotrice, and Michael, played by Matthew Garber, have just run off another nanny. And frankly, she was just tired of the children running away all the time and generally being disobedient. And it turns out that they had been churning through nannies. They had just been, nannies coming, nannies going, The father blames the mother for doing a horrible job of picking nannies. And then he decides to take matters into his own hands, okay? And he places an ad in the Times to get a new nanny. And while he was drafting his ad for the Times, the children have written their own ad. He wanted a nanny into strictness and discipline, and the kids wanted a nanny that was kind and into games. The father ripped up the children's ad and threw it in the fireplace. The day of the nanny interviews, a strange wind came and blew all of the nannies away that had come in response to the father's ad. The only nanny that remained had literally floated down from the heavens, and her name was Mary Poppins, and she had inexplicably come in response to the ad drawn up by the children that the father had ripped up and put in the fireplace. She definitely, kind of manipulated the father into hiring her. And then she proceeded to take the children on a series of magical adventures, such as jumping into a chalk painting to experience the countryside and carousel that lived in the art, and laughing so hard that they floated up to the ceiling to have a tea party. She teaches them fun words like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, a word you say when you don't know what to say. And she also introduces them to fun people like a local jack of all trades that accompanied them on their various adventures named Bert, played by Dick Van Dyke. Eventually, the father gets tired of hearing these stories of these silly adventures, and he attempts to tell Mary Poppins to get her act together. But somehow, by the end of the conversation, she had tricked him into agreeing to take the children to work with him the next day, something that never would have happened otherwise. The kids didn't even believe it at first because their father never took them on outings. The day turns into a disaster when the son refuses to deposit his savings into the father's bank. Bank customers overhear his refusal. They think something is up with the bank, and they start to demand their money back from the bank, causing massive confusion. And the father ends up getting fired from the bank. Surprisingly, though, the father, instead of feeling heartbroken or angry about being fired, he laughs and tells jokes because he finally realizes that the job is not his life. His family is his life. And if not for this incident, he never would have had this realization. He goes home and he takes his family out to fly kites. Even the wife, who had earlier in the movie opted to leave the children with a stranger rather than miss one of her community events, she tied her coveted suffragette scarf onto the end of the kite and happily went to the park with her family. Eventually, the father does get his job back, and Mary Poppins floats back into the clouds. But it's clear that the family would never be the same again. The end.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Amazing review.
And y'all, I have to say,
I actually thought that was going to be a difficult movie to summarize because there is a plot there, but it's very, like, it's there, but it's more just a way to get them to the next set piece.
This is why Genia writes those, because mine would have been a magical nanny came and helped the family.
Yeah, I mean,
and we would have started the review. I mean,
that's called a log line.
No,
I mean, there was an arc there. There was an arc there for the dad, especially.
What
I'm saying? There was an arc there for the dad, but mainly, this is look at what we can do now. This is pretty cool. We're about to show you how we can have Dick Van Dyke dancing with penguins. It's going to be awesome. Trust us.
Bro, it's so crazy that you would say that it just was like the storyline was a little loose there, was because the actual children's books, the Mary Poppins children's books that it was based on, was really just a series of adventures. And so one of the things they talked about in the documentary, The Making of Mary Poppins, they talked about this. They were like, we had to create some kind of overarching.
Yeah, we had to do something.
Because it was really just the nanny pops in, has an adventure, and nanny would leave.
Gotcha, okay. And that's what it feels like. So that's good. I feel like they gave a little story and kept the feeling, that you're supposed to have. So that's good.
And it truly felt like a children's film. Like, I think sometimes, like,
it did.
For me, the content we watch, I would call it family content sometimes that we watched when we were little.
Yeah.
But this one, I was watching it now, it felt like a children's film. What did y'all think? Did it feel like family programming, or did it feel like a kid's film?
It felt like a kid's film to me. When I was watching it, I was saying to myself, this just seems like a child's imagination.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that I just kept thinking the entire time I was watching it.
It could have definitely been a dream, like the whole, like like a shared dream.
You are literally like, and this is really a shout out to caregivers, right? Like you to caregivers, teachers, people who take care of the minds and the imaginations, and also doing their best to preserve the innocence of children. You do a lot. You do a ton. And for her, it was teaching them lessons, but also, you have to take the medicine, but a spoonful of sugar with it, right? Just helping them to see that these things are important. But yeah, so it definitely felt like a fun children's movie to me that can keep them interested and also teach them something.
And sis, you saying that, it makes me think of, and I did not do a good job of keeping the notes about it when I was taking notes watching it, but there were so many little nuggets that were in there that were lessons for children. And I thought the movie did a good job of making them explicit. The one that comes to mind for me that I did write down was when, she said to them, enough is as good as a feast. Like she just had all these little sayings. The children were wanting more and more and more. And she's like, sometimes enough is as good as a feast. She had a bunch of those little sayings, like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, that were clear lessons for children. Do y'all remember any of the other ones? Like just those little.
I feel slightly the opposite, not completely, but I'm saying if I was a parent, there are definitely messages that I would want communicated in the same way. Like I don't want my kids eating sugar with medicine. like that doesn't make any sense at all. Or like, I mean, especially a spoonful, that's a bad situation. Like, yes, it tastes better, but now you've done created a problem along with the medicine, and I would say the other one that really made me think about it in the beginning was when she first got there and they were cleaning up the rooms. And to me, if it was a movie trying to teach kids lessons, they would have actually did it fun or some way, but it's like, now we actually cleaned the room. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like one little bit of trivia you can have about me and Janiyah is me and Janiyah had a cleaning song when we were cleaning our room and we're not gonna no.
I'm about to sing it. Clean. Clean. That was the hook. That's all y'all need to know. Okay.
That was the hook.
That was the hook.
That was how I brought in. Now we're not gonna do the whole song for you. Maybe one day we will. I have to emotionally prepare myself to.
We
might even do it at the end of the. But anyway, the point is that
Black people always have a song in their souls.
But what I'm saying is when Janiyah and I were singing this cleaning song, which we actually recorded on her Fisher Price, recording tape deck. We recorded and we were literally cleaning while we were singing the song, and that felt like what I would have liked to see. Like they were doing something, but they got to just snap, and then everything was going away. And so I was really kind of like, and then they kind of watched her manipulate the dad, into doing things. And so for me, I feel like it's more like a family movie in a sense of.
Okay, so bro, you've just really opened up a can of worms here in a good way. Okay, because bro, when I was watching this movie, I did not experience what I thought was happening was that Mary Poppins was not actually magical, but that the children just felt like and remembered her as magical. So, for example, what was actually happening is that they were just cleaning their room, but she found a way to engage their imaginations in a way that it made it feel like it was happening magically.
That's deep.
Wow.
That she didn't actually come flying in, and the other nannies got blown away in the wind, but that for the kids, because remember, it was them looking out the window that they saw the other nannies get blown away, and they saw her come in.
Janiyah,
for the kids, it's just seen that way.
You usually lose me on this type of stuff. You usually do. But I am like, I'm already 100% on board, because the thing about it is you realize certain things as you get older, that certain memories you just create. Now, this is definitely a fantastical example of that.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, it could very much be that when they were telling their parents what they wanted, that somehow that part got into the actual advertisement of, and then this person
or she just came along and she fit the bill. Like she matched what they wanted. And so, you know what I mean? Maybe.
See, now you're taking me, I want to be way in to this idea. And like, to me, the manifestation of, we're kids, we're telling you what we want.
Yes.
And you ignore that is the same as it getting ripped up and put in the fireplace.
Yeah, you're so right, bro.
But when this person still shows up, and even when they planted those seeds while the parents were interviewing, it's like, okay, the kids did say this, and this, and it also lines up. Like, we got what we want, but it also lines up. Yes. So I'm just saying, like, if you think about the movie in that context, everything really kind of falls into place. I mean,
where did you think about this? Did you feel like this was a magical nanny, or that this was a person that to the children felt magical, and so that's how the story was being told?
Well, I haven't thought about that concept until really now, but I thought that she was a magical nanny that the children imagined. Like, I felt like the whole movie was just not even real. If that makes sense. Like, this was the children having a conversation. Like, it could have very well opened up the movie, like the kids sitting there, I wish we had a nanny that did this and did that.
And they just created it.
And they just created this person.
And they talk about her and stuff.
Right. But really the deeper context of it is that's what all the things that they were saying they wanted her to be, they wanted their parents to be. And so that was really them like, well, if we can't get our parents to do it because our mom is always off doing a rally and our dad is always going to work and quite frankly, neither of them want to be bothered with us.
Right.
But they simultaneously want us. And so for me, it was them almost like a coping mechanism. Like, well, we wish we had someone that was doing these things.
It created this whole world.
Just a whole world, which a lot of people do in general, right? A lot of people do it.
We need the audience to weigh in. Yeah. We need the audience to weigh in on this one. Y'all,
that was a good one too.
Is Mary Poppins a real magical nanny? Is she just a reflection, a childhood reflection of a person that was actually just, magical in their lives, and therefore they think of her as magical? Or number 3, was she just a fantasy? Was she just something they made up and wished had happened, but didn't really happen?
A simple fantasy that I wish was reality. This is how hood movies meet me. You're welcome.
Before we move on, I want to tell my idea, which is not as good as either of yours, and that I would not have told in public unless you all had your ideas. So I want to tell mine, because my idea was that the only people who existed in this movie are the parents, the maid, the cook, and the chimney sweep. And they're just all on a really bad acid trip.
There you go. What if we had kids?
Yeah, they're just
and then they wanted a nanny.
Somebody
but previously the nannies had not been good. But then we wanted one that was good. But then they imagined one, but then she came down from the sky.
No, Aubrey's movie is part of the DARE program.
Listen, I think those people were tripping, and they were all walking around the house. And was nobody else there.
So here's my thought. Here's how part of the reason I got to this thought. It was that one of the first very magical things that happens is that they are walking down the street. The nanny and the 2 kids, and they see a chalk painting on the ground.
Yeah.
And they jump into the chalk painting. They actually jump into it. And to me, that is the same as, or could be the same as, an adult helping children to use their imaginations to go beyond what they actually see. Well, because I think that's what you do when you go to a museum, right? When we go to museums, we may look at something and say, how does it make us feel? What do we think is the story around this? What's the narrative around this piece? What else is happening that we don't see? What happened before? What happened after? That's how we all process art. And I could see an adult helping a child to do that with the freedom of a child's imagination. They could feel like they actually went in to the painting.
I mean, both of your ideas are really. I do think this movie is more simple than that in actuality. I think they were just, it's just a magical nanny. I do think that. I don't. But the thing is, though, is movies are art, just like anything is art. Art is about interpretation, and all I'm saying is both the ideas you explained, I feel trapped pretty, onto that actual movie.
I'll tell you one thing: the author didn't want them to interpret too much. Because Janaya sent us the making of the Mary Poppins movie, and like Walt Disney basically had to beg for this movie for like 10 years. And then it was 20 years. It was 20 years. And then like she was very involved in how this movie was going to be portrayed. So she didn't want too much interpretation. Okay. And I am
so was the book about a magical nanny?
T.L. Travers was this author that Brittany's talking about. And this is a good question, bro. I don't know if the book was about a magical nanny or if the book was about the children imagining a magical nanny. I don't know what it was, but one of the things, for example, that she cared a lot about was that she wanted to make sure that Walt Disney didn't make the father look like a bad guy. She just wanted the father to look like a busy guy, and that's the kind of thing that could exist in either of these, narratives, So I don't know, but that's a good question.
But anyway, that's good.
Well, I just found it today that there was like the little it was about an hour documentary about the book, the actual book, Mary Poppins. And I told Aubrey we were talking about it for a second in the green room. Yeah. And it has like this like ominous type of music to it. And I was like, what's the real story? I plan to watch that later just to kind of see exactly what they're talking about in this, just to see. I'm like, why are you all making this seem like it's much more serious than I want it to be right now? But that's what they're doing a lot now, is like destroying our childhood. Like, oh yeah, that nursery rhyme is about the Black Plague. And it's like, oh, thank you.
We're going to stay positive here, because that road you're talking about is a dark one. Because that road you're talking about is a dark road. It's so dark. And it covers so many things.
It's so much stuff. Please don't decode, please. But I will say that one thing that I thought that I was adding to the movie that I felt was a little bit there, but it wasn't really, was this love relationship between Mary Poppins and Bert. I said, y'all got a little.
I don't know though.
I feel like Mary Poppins is like a flight attendant situation. So whenever I'm in the city, we go out and we date, but then I leave and that's it. We just Mary Poppins is a free agent. Like she's like, when I'm in the city, we talk, we chill. You remember me, I remember you. That's it. Nothing serious.
But Britt, if you look at it in the context of what Janaya is talking about, that's how a kid would interpret it. You know what I'm saying? Like for them, they wouldn't really understand what was going on on that relationship. But I don't think I actually wanted to talk about that because I think they implied it enough that because there was definitely some chemistry going on between Bert and
yes, it was, honey.
Y'all, I will not allow you.
And she was getting
to add a sexual tension between Bert and Mary Poppins. I reject it.
You can reject it all you want, but when they were sitting at that table with the penguins,
that's right. And I wasn't completely in that thought process until your idea, sis, Genia, because your idea makes it even make more sense because they weren't acting out of pocket around the kids.
Nope.
They weren't, you know what I mean? They weren't, which is exactly how it would be. Like if they weren't in an official relationship and they were, you know, hey, Mary come in to town every now and then. If that's how it was,
the way he was in all the adventures.
Like why, you know, and
all the adventures. Come on.
And then if you hear some of the language Bert uses to describe Mary,
that's bad.
I'm just saying it's words.
Bad.
It's words you would use to describe to be like, yeah, I mean but you would dial it down into the nice words.
Okay. This is another question for the people. Was there something going on between Bert and Mary Poppins?
Because when they were sitting at the table with the penguins, and he started naming all those women names, because that's like that's the original DMX song where DMX is naming all those women. Bert was naming all these women. And Mary was like, now hold on now. And then at the end he got to, but then nobody can compare to Mary. Of course, which also means Bert, you're in the streets. That's okay. That's the other.
That's what I'm saying.
What you doing, sweeping all them chimneys? You got a lot of jobs, Bert. What you with all these jobs?
Sweeping a lot of chimneys tonight.
You real friendly to the people.
He's sweeping a lot of chimneys.
Bert.
That's all I'm saying.
Bert.
He seems real carefree.
Everybody knows you in the town. You're cool with the police.
He's cool with the cops.
Yeah. He's a man about town. A man about town.
Bert is brother man. Okay.
So to answer your question,
so interesting.
Janelle, we just spent the last 40 minutes answering your question. Like, all she asked was, "Do you think this was a children's movie?" And we just went down this whole rabbit hole. But for me, I felt like it was a family. We just got deep, but on the shallow end of it, it felt more of a family movie to me because of the lessons to me weren't actual lessons, but it seemed like something that was fun for the kids to watch. But the real lessons were the adults. Like the father is the one who really learned something throughout this movie. And I feel like for me, it did feel like a kid's movie because I was so impressed with the performances that I just felt like I was watching something I would watch. You know what I mean? So for me, it felt like more of a family
performances,
movie.
Bro. Let's go to the performances.
Oh, yeah.
And why don't we start with Julie Andrews, who again, we are recording this in her birthday month to celebrate her.
Yes.
And you know, I want to just give a teaspoon, okay? A half teaspoon of the Julie Andrews accomplishments. Okay. She has won. First of all, her career spans 7 decades. Okay. Because she started as a child performer. Okay.
Beautiful.
She had a 4-octave range as a child. Okay. And that is why. And she was the parent, her mother and stepfather were performers. And so she grew up in a performance household. And because they were performers, she had an opportunity to get to the stage very early. Okay. And it turned out she had all this talent and they nurtured it. And she has now an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, 2 Emmy Awards, 3 Grammy Awards, 6 Golden Globe Awards. She's been nominated for Tony Awards. Okay. She's been honored with the Kennedy Center Honors. She's received the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award. Okay. The AFI Life Achievement Award. She was made a dame by Queen Elizabeth II. Okay. She has been in at least 39 movies, at least 43 different television shows, at least 6 Broadway musicals. And I'm saying at least because I didn't check multiple sources to make sure I was comprehensive, and more, y'all. Okay. So this is a career that has been epic and expansive. And this movie, Mary Poppins, was her first feature film. She had been on stages She had already been blown up on stage, but this was her first feature film.
We talk often about the genesis of our podcast was talking about hood movies and musicals. That was the genesis, because we spend a lot of time talking about hood movies and musicals just as a group of siblings. And when we talk about somebody who's leading a musical, Julie Andrews is like the example, one of the examples that I'm talking about, because when she opens her mouth, it is effortless. And I love how, remember, even when you're talking about, David had a way for her to flex in this movie when she was singing to herself in the mirror.
Yes.
And when they're singing and she does the little run, you know what I mean? And she looked at her like cheeky, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, no, I just wanted to quickly show y'all, like, I'm definitely tearing up all these songs, but I also wanted to show you it could be worse if I wanted. But I'm just going to keep it within the normal range.
That's right.
This
is for the children. This is for the children.
This is for the children. But I also want to show and
just a little piece.
And the way it transitions, it's almost, I know they didn't record it like this, but it's just so good. It seems like the talking to singing is so seamless with her that it's like, it's not like, you know how musicals you can sometimes hear the switch of the like acting mics or whatever to the and it's something that's cool. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, but for her, it's almost like she just started talking and then singing, and it just flowed easily. And
that's because her talent, like, there's something about when I'll just say this. I think it's rare when you can say someone is born for something. And it's like Julie Andrews, through even just you being taught and your skill, but this is something that it's in her. Like, it is in her because it flows through her so seamlessly. So I enjoy, even right up to like Princess Diaries, right? Like, watching you in these movies that are later. She had this very kind sass and in her roles and how she does and how she carries herself. And I just love that. I just, so she's amazing to me. So,
and a true good comedic timing. Sometimes those are the things that I don't feel they can be taught. You know what I mean? Some of these actresses that just know how to bring humor into a situation that feels very real. And that is what Julie Andrews does. There were times in this movie where it was so subtle, it was a facial expression.
Yeah.
Or just a little head movement. And it was bringing a whole other kind of comedic interpretation to what she was saying or what she was doing, because there were times in terms of the scripting for this movie where what she was saying was very straightforward. So, for example, there was an ongoing, kind of the way that they were handling her magic was that she would almost hate to use it, so something would happen and somebody would ask her to be magical and she would say, "Oh, if I must," or like, and then she pulled out the magic and all of a sudden a smoke coming out of a smoke stack turns into stairs that the children can walk up. And she would just but it would be it was a simple line of "if I must," but the way that she would convey it would actually make you giggle and laugh because she could just bring that comedy into the performance. And I'm going to tell y'all though, one of the things that I'm sorry, go ahead, sis.
When you talk about those smoke stairs, I think I started leaning more towards Aubrey's version of this movie about acid.
Listen,
smoke stairs.
My idea is very bad.
Imagine if
my idea of that was very bad. Both of your ideas were good, actual good ideas.
Imagine
mine was bad, but I feel
there
like
was no stairs.
I feel like I can make a loose argument for it.
I feel like it's hilarious. I can't wait for people to comment and weigh in on that idea. That to me,
I don't want to talk about my idea.
was his
Everyone,
entire thing.
if you weigh in on any idea, only weigh on his. Weigh in on Aubrey's. That's it. No
Discuss the serious idea.
But you
Sorry,
know, the stairs are actually not, I don't want to take us away from talking about the performances.
Yeah.
But the stairs are also an opportunity for us to just talk about, you know, the fact that there were some really interesting special effects in this movie.
Yes.
And
very much.
As we're talking about the performances, it's important to name like that it isn't enough just to be a good actor, you know, when you're in a situation where you're dealing with these kinds of special effects. So when we're talking about the performance of Julie Andrews, and then I think, why don't we go to Dick Van Dyke next?
Got to.
Those
Absolutely.
people, in addition to needing to act and needing to sing and needing to dance, they needed to do it with animated characters that they couldn't see. You know, the art of interacting with animation, or the art of making sure that your body looks like you are flying so that later in editing, they can make it look like you are. You know, that's part of what Julie Andrews did so well. But why don't we talk about Dick Van Dyke, y'all? Because
listen,
I
love me some Dick Van Dyke.
And I'm going to say one thing real quick. Do y'all know Dick Van Dyke had no dancing training before this movie? He was not a dancer. He was not a dancer, y'all. And so he was in the documentary, he was talking about how they rehearsed like that scene, that chimney dance scene of the chimney sweeps. They rehearsed that for 6 weeks, you know, and they actually, and he was like, and that was my training. That was my dance training. And the actual choreographers were in the documentary, and they were like, listen, trained dancers would have struggled to do some of the sequences he did in terms of the acrobatics that were included, him flipping to and fro, hither and thither. Okay. And he had no dance training. This is a man who can just perform. Okay.
He's so well. Oh, he's so good. And just to that point of the choreography, it impressed me so much that I had to look up the choreographer. I was like, who did this?
Yes.
Because you're amazing. But Dick Van Dyke, I enjoy him so much. His physical comedy is so well done. But I enjoy watching in the documentary him talk about how at the documentary at that time, the year before, because I think that documentary came out in like 2004 or something like that. And he said the year before he had just gotten voted as being one of the people with the worst British accents to ever like try to one. Like he was laughing about it. He enjoyed that. But just seeing when you see someone like that can laugh at themselves, but also have a good time. He created the way the Jane, I don't know her real name, but Jane as an adult was reflecting on him and how much fun he made the set. So and even right to watching Dick Van Karen Dotrice, and even right to watching Dick Van Dyke in later movies, right? Like The Museum, like you're seeing him and who he is. He is an amazing force, so talented, very funny. I love his how he portrays his comedy. And then even down to the serious parts, where he was having, to your question earlier, sis, about some of the lessons the children were learning, he started to help the children to have a different perspective, the character Bert, about their father, because they were like, he doesn't like us, he doesn't love us. Mm-hmm. And he was like, no, I think that he was like, your dad does love you. He said, but you have to think about it. Dads, they go through a lot and they don't have anyone to tell when they go through things. They don't have anyone to confide in and who helps them when they need help. And so it was something to even to the author's point, to show this is not a bad man. He's just a busy man, and he is a father trying to make sure that he is providing everything for the household, right? That's including wife, children, the people who are employed by him. He is doing his best to be all those things.
Yes.
And I appreciated just Bert's character even having that moment with the kids. But also, let's just talk about a community raising children. Because these kids would run off all of the places. Where are you going? But they always made it home safely.
It was clearly a different time. Yeah, That was a different time. And even though them running off was bad, it's not bad in the context of how we think about it. You know, it's like us is like what? You know, but I just think Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke did most of the heavy lifting in terms of forming. And first of all, to keep that interesting for over 2 hours is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
And how easy they did it. And it's just people who are talented on that level. And I don't know if I've ever said this before, but it made me think of my favorite artist, or one of my most favorite artists, which is Biggie Smalls. And my favorite song of Biggie Smalls is a song that's called I Got a Story to Tell. Now, it is a story that is much on the polar opposite of Mary Poppins, but in the
hood movies and musicals, I love it.
Hood movies and musicals. But I'm saying in the song, he raps the story, and then he tells the story, just talking. And I've always been so impressed with people who their talent just looks like it just oozes out of them. It's like I'm not even trying right now.
Yes.
This is just what I'm doing.
Yes.
And you know, you're like, it's not hard for me. And that's how I feel watching those. It's like when you see them in a different way, and there's times where it's like Dick Van Dyke will let her shine, and then she'll let Dick Van Dyke shine. It's like they both know they're talented on a level that's just, we're just tearing this movie up. It's just, it oozes out. So I feel like it's some of the best performances I've ever seen in musicals.
I'll just talk about this aimless mama that was in this here movie. How she was in the suffragette movement, but I was like, what you suffering from? I was I was laughing because I was like, it made me laugh, the fact that it was showing her be in this movement, but she had maids, nannies, all the things. I was like, what are you doing? You don't.
And she was constantly deferring to the husband. She was like a women's liberation person, but whatever the husband said, she was like, of course, dear, you know, whatever you think, you know.
And it made me wonder.
She was a fun character.
She was a fun character. And it made me wonder, though, did they do that on purpose, right? To like kind of poke fun at that movement, or was it just, this is who she is just as this character? Because the ones that probably would have been like really needing to be the ones out there at the house, they're baking, they're cooking, and I always love a good sassy house worker. I think they crack me up. The fact that she was like, could you watch the kids? She was like, no, I'm doing other things. No, absolutely not. Like, it's so true. Anyway.
It was interesting because the father had a clear arc. You know, we watched him go through a journey of like, I'm really super busy and not able to focus on family, and I have a perspective on how things should run, to actually getting involved and then realizing that he needed to prioritize differently by the end. Yeah. And for the mom, you know, I thought that they did a good job of letting us see how much she wasn't choosing home and how much she wasn't choosing the family. But I thought they did a really fast job of her turning things around, you know. And in fact, and I had to almost make it up, you know, the only way that we saw that she had a turnaround was that she took her coveted woman suffragette sash,
vote for women,
and allowed them to fly it at the end in that family moment. So it was almost her saying, this is not as important as me being with my family right now, and this kite looking nice and fun for us, you know, let me contribute to the kite, you know, because the father had mended the kite, and she was wanted to be a part of the kite being fixed, and so she tied her sash to it so it would have a tail. But they didn't really give her a story like that. I felt like she was more a mechanism for comic relief than anything else.
Absolutely. But I think it goes back to what you said before, that wasn't really the point of this movie. Like, the point of this movie we're going to put a plot in there so it can have a plot. You know what I mean? But the point of this movie is to get to the set pieces so we can show you what we're doing. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying I don't know that. Like, I think that if somebody was viewing this movie like in the final cut, they probably would have made that same observation, but then they'd be like, this is really about Dick Van Dyke dancing with cartoons, though.
Right.
Like
this is really it.
Yeah, we're getting down to it.
The actress that played the mom, by the way, I want to put her name out there, Glynis Johns.
Yeah, she did an amazing job.
She did. And
she did a great
in the
job.
Documentary, when they first approached her about being in the movie, she was like, well, I'll be in it, but she was like, I would be more enticed to be in it if I had a little musical number. And that's when they added the woman's suffragette song that she sang in order to entice Glynis to be a part
that's
of the
cool.
movie.
That's dope.
I love in documentaries where they do kind of go through how they do the casting.
How they got to,
So the way that they picked Julie Andrews to be in the film was they had been considering a lot of different people, and it's names that we recognize: Mary Martin, Betty Davis, Angela Lansbury. Hello, Murder, She Wrote, right? They were considering those people, but then they saw Julie Andrews performing on the Ed Sullivan Show. The cast of Camelot was on the Ed Sullivan Show, and they saw her and they were like, clearly that's Mary Poppins. Yeah. And with Dick Van Dyke's casting was really interesting that Walt Disney had actually seen a quote from Dick Van Dyke in a paper saying that he didn't like how cinema was trending toward dirty movies. Okay?
Yes.
And Walt Disney called him in for a meeting because he agreed. He called him in for a meeting and then essentially ended up offering him the role.
Wow.
I love having that.
Yeah, they didn't like dirty movies, but Bert definitely had some friends.
Yeah, that scene, the rooftop scene, and I think that could transition us into talking about the set pieces because
let's do it.
That was a great scene, and I feel like it was not only just a great musical number, it was also just visually stunning. Seeing them dance, and then seeing when it gets dark, and you're like seeing the silhouettes dancing, and the silhouettes disappearing into the chimneys and stuff like that.
Yeah,
the whole movie was packed with these things that it's like the performances are great, absolutely. In addition to them being great, they also made these scenes kind of a separate and simultaneous thing, almost like you could watch it on mute and it would still be interesting to watch.
Absolutely. And bro, in that scene, they originally intended, they were trying to cut it down to 2 minutes. And it ended up being like, I think it was 13 or 14.
Yeah,
including we needed the time where the chimney sweeps are back in the house because they were coming up with so many good ideas.
Yeah, we needed all those minutes.
We needed every single minute. Yeah. And they, this whole entire film, by the way, was shot on a soundstage at Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California. Wow. So every single background was a painted London background. Yeah. So all of this was set.
That is something.
That's awesome.
All right. So
did you find any information about how, like, was it, how when Avatar came out in our time, right? It was like this big thing. Was it like that for Mary Poppins? Did anybody do any research on that? I'm just curious.
Because it seemed like that, bro, because I assumed that the fact that there was live action happening alongside animation, that was innovative for the time. Now, it was excellent quality for the time. But the truth is, when this movie was filmed in the 60s, that had already been happening for a long time.
Gotcha.
The first movie that featured live action alongside a animation was actually in 1900. I couldn't believe it. A silent film called The Enchanted Drawing.
Did you happen to look it up?
I didn't.
And watch it?
I didn't.
I
saw a little excerpt of it, and it was like a little girl floating oddly in a. I only watched like 2 seconds of it.
But you saw it.
It was clearly animation, like a little drawing coming to life. And in one of the interviews, when they were talking about that, they were talking about that interaction between like the live action and the animation in Mary Poppins. They were saying that that had been an integral part of Walt Disney Studios since its opening.
Gotcha.
So there had apparently been other films where they had used that mechanism. But by then, of course, the technology had been improved. Right. And they were just saying they had some of the best animators working on the film.
So they just had really good people. Level,
yeah,
it was a quality thing more than the innovation.
Have been out there.
Gotcha.
Okay, that makes sense.
Makes sense. But it looked good because it even looks good now. It even looks good now.
Song.
Like
yeah,
it doesn't take you, even though it's in 1964. The effects don't take you out of it. It was almost, I was impressed. Like, where are the strings? Like, I don't.
Yes.
Like, so it was
absolutely.
It was definitely good.
I agree with you, and I love that song. It was almost like the song that never ends because it was like she was like they saw her sad. They were like, "Vote for women." Yeah, and
like, that is something.
Step in time. Vote for women.
And that is something I would do with my friends. 100%. Like if we caught on to something like that and we decided it would go to anything, we would just do it.
It was like the dad is home. Dad is home. Step in
time. I was like, what is happening right now?
Hey y'all,
when the little boy tried to leave with them.
And I hate to make it a little sad, but I'm gonna read y'all. I wondered about chimney sweeps. Y'all, did this make you want to understand chimney sweeps? Like I thought it was interesting.
A lot happening there because I was like, what? They dirtied up the whole house.
Oh, that house was covered in soot.
It was in soot.
And so on IMDb, one of the trivias that they had listed there was about the chimney sweeps, and I'm just going to read it straight. So in the movie, you guys remember that one of the things Mary Poppins and Bert kept saying is that if you shake the hand of a chimney sweep, it would bring you good luck. Right. So after that scene where all the chimney sweeps are in the house and they all leave, it's like a dozen of them or more, and they all shake the father's hand. The little boy's like, oh man, dad's going to be full of luck because he's this little bit of trivia is addressing that little comment. So the tradition of good luck rubbing off when shaking hands with a chimney sweep is one with a bittersweet meaning. Because of the inhalation of coal dust, the life of a chimney sweep tended to be rather short and to end up unable to work and spending his final days in poverty. As chimney sweeps had poor luck combined with short lives, the notion was that the luck that they couldn't have for themselves could be transferred
given to other people. Well, that was really depressing. Thank you, Janai.
Yeah, well, if you guys want some other bad news.
Depressing story, step in time. Step in time.
Yes. Yes.
Other bad news. Okay, so y'all, it wasn't in the recap, and we haven't talked about it to this point. But there was this other little random character in the movie, which was this retired,
retired corporal,
a retired army person, who had turned his house into a battleship. And he would be up on the roof.
It's worse than apartment living.
Up on the roof. Essentially he was aimless, obviously, because all he would do every single hour is set off a cannon to try to mark the hour. Okay. That's all he ever did with his life. Okay. And he was one of those people that was obviously revered and respected in the community. So they were just letting him do this. He would just,
they were prepped for it.
Every hour, everything.
I thought it was just at 8 p.m. I thought it was just at 8 p.m.
Oh, it was every hour.
Oh, I thought it was just at 8 p.m.
I thought it was on the hour.
Oh, hold on now. And now it's at the hour. Somewhat.
Yeah, because they did it a lot.
Yeah, it was on the hour. So... And I don't want to talk too much about the sequel and take us down that path, but I did start watching.
Him in the head, step in time.
I started watching the sequel, and in the sequel, he's still up there doing it. And in the sequel, he has gotten so old and off his rocker at this point that he's off. And so he's actually like 4 minutes late. And so it's like every hour, but 4 minutes off. Anyway, so on the topic of like really sad takeaways that we can all have, there's there's a point where that character, he is on his roof, as he is usually, with no other purpose in his life, and he sees
him
the
and his
chimney
homeboy.
he sees the chimney sweeps over there dancing and having a good time with Mary Poppins and Bert and the kids. And what does he do? He says, "Oh no, the Hottentots are coming to attack us." And he sets off fireworks to try to take them out. Okay, and you'll recall that that's what causes the chimney sweeps to scurry off the roof.
Right, off the roof, right.
Well, I don't know why. Maybe I was sleepy. I don't know. But that term, him saying the Hottentots are coming to it made me literally, like, I choked on my drink I was drinking. I laughed out loud, and I just thought it was so funny. And then I was talking to James and Brittany, and James laughing still about it. And James was like, "You know, that's a racist term." Oh, that's a funny term. He's just saying Hottentots. He's off his rocker. That's funny. Y'all, Hottentots is not funny. Okay, what is a Hottentot? Well, I'm happy you asked. A Hottentot is a term that is used to refer to the Khoi peoples of South Africa and Namibia. The term comes from the Dutch, perhaps a repetitive formula in a Nama dancing song transferred by Dutch sailors to the people themselves, or from the German Hotteren, Totteren, stutter, with a it is like a derogative reference to the click language of these people. So when he was saying the Hottentots are coming to get us, it was because the chimney sweeps were dressed in all black and covered in soot.
Racist moment step in time. Racist moment step
in time. Racist moment step in time. Racist moment step in time.
We were in such a positive place. Just it feels like it was so long ago we were in positive.
That's the thing. They did it with intention. It's like this movie was being made in the 60s, about 1910. And so they were making choices about how to show what life and psychology might have been like in London in 1910.
In 1910.
And they did it.
And they did
gracious, they did it.
But y'all, if James had not said that, I would have been on this podcast laughing about Hottentots. Like, oh, that's so funny. Because I thought it was just like I don't know, like a little.
You say that, but I can't see you not researching that. I can't see, like, I think because James told you, your brain didn't have to go there. But I think when you get into your Genia cycle and then you decided you wanted to talk about that, I'm not saying whatever, but I just can't see you not saying, maybe I need to see what that is just real quick. And like, I think your brain
maybe you're right, bro.
I think your brain would have got there.
Because I think that really, and after knowing that, I had a little while where it wasn't funny anymore, that scene, because it's like, man, why you gotta be like that?
Oh, man, you gotta say that, man.
But then I started laughing even more because it is true. Like when I talk to white friends, they talk about how their grandparents are like so racist and like, and that's right now. And it's like when I'm like, even with professional colleagues, like when, part of the work that I do with social justice organizations is to help them put strategies in place to remove implicit bias from the work they're doing. And that journey includes learning your own bias. Okay. And finding out ways that you can make different choices to try to mitigate some of it. Right. And in that process, you end up talking about how you came to be the way you are. And you end up reflecting on like your childhood, your family, your friends, and your people around you. And this story of like, man, from white people talking about like, yeah, my grandfather, just as this past Thanksgiving, made this horrible racist joke. It's real. It's real. So then when I could think about it that way, it was I could allow myself to laugh at that scene.
Because it was just a real thing. It wasn't like, oh, let's place this in here. And no, we're talking about all the things of that time. We're talking about the suffragette movement. We're talking about these types of statements that would be made in these contexts. We're talking about all of this. Something I will say that I guess is kind of not sad, but more so like a more somber moment in the film was the Toppins. And so I want to tell you guys
Tuppence.
There we go.
Which is 2 cents. It was like about it's like 2 cents.
2 cents. I was watching, I get mixed up on My Fair Lady and Mary Poppins. And I didn't realize that until I was sitting there and I was like, wait, does this movie have the Toppin song? Or does My Fair Lady have the Toppin song? I was literally having a moment. Like, I don't know. My brain was melding the two. I was like, why did I do that? Is there a pigeon moment in My Fair Lady? I cannot remember right now. Okay. Is that what's happening?
Here's what I think I'm just guessing, sis. Here's what I think you might be pulling together. So for those who might not have seen Mary Poppins, there is a scene in the movie with there's a woman who sits on the steps of like a government building in the square, and she says, "Feed the birds, tuppence a bag, feed the birds." And the Mary Poppins makes it a song, "Feed the birds, tuppence a bag." And what she's actually doing is teaching the children how to make sure that they're paying attention to people and not being self-involved. And she was trying to show them that your father, he walks through his life self-involved, and that's something we all need to kind of like strive against. We need to have our eyes open and see what's around us. And so she talks to him about this woman on the stairs, and she's there covered in birds, okay? Talking about feed the birds, tuppence a bag. I thought, sis, of the scene from Home Alone with that bird lady in the park. But the scene I think you're thinking about in Eliza Doolittle is in the very beginning in My Fair Lady, where she's in the square trying to sell flowers. And she's talking about, I think she even says like, tuppet, like she's trying to sell that little bundle of flowers for money. Yeah. And I think
is that what it is?
Says tuppence, I think.
Okay. Because I was just like, why is that in a different movie for me?
No,
what
I
is
can
happening
see those
right
two
now
in your mind getting conflated. That scene of her trying to sell them flowers. Yeah. I can't remember exactly what she said, but I think she was saying like, "Oh, tuppence for the flowers."
Listen, and it takes a lot to make it. I saw Audrey Hepburn, right? It takes a lot to make her look dirty. Like how they did that is that's awesome. But that's what we're talking about. What we're talking about right now is, but I appreciated that because then this movie in perfect arc fashion, whenever the father got a call after all the ruckus happened from Michael trying to get his tuppence back from the head of the bank, he got fired. And as he was on his way back, he stopped and looked at the stairs where that woman normally selling the bags of food for the pigeon would have been sitting, almost like to himself, like, I never paid attention to that. Yeah. I never noticed that. And now that I have this time, it's 9:00 at night. There's nobody else out. I know that I'm walking to go get fired. My mind is open now, in a sense. So, and even to that point, which to go back to Dick Van Dyke, he played this character of this old man in this movie. And so just
did y'all remember that?
His talent. I vaguely remembered that, but to confirm it, I had to look it up. I was like, I think that's Dick Van Dyke. And
I meant to look that up too, but I never did. But I was like,
that was him. That was him. But I can't even act like I knew that. I
didn't even know it at
when
the
he was
end.
Before, it was watching it now where I was like, that's Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah. When he did it, because I was like, I remember that being him, but also being like, they did a great job of it not looking like him. But again, to his physical comedy, to how he was, he did an amazing job. So, but them just even showing in that bank this type of, I am a banker and this is what we do with money and this is what's supposed to happen. And their dancing was just walking straight and turning almost military style. I was like, who, again, the choreographer, for you to come up with something like this, these old men clearly past their time of even needing to be working in this place right now, with their old antiquated mindsets and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Them showing that, like, what would those type of men do in this moment? They wouldn't do much. They would just walk in line and go like this to each other.
And that sis, you really just made a commercial right now for the documentary. Because in the documentary, they taught, and I personally would recommend it. If you have any interest in the Mary Poppins movie, if you enjoy it, I would recommend this documentary. You can find it on YouTube for free. The Making of Mary Poppins. It's only an hour long, a little less than an hour, and in it, the choreographers and even the people who wrote the songs, they all talk about their process of how they made their way to this choreography for this scene, and how they might have started with a dance movement that was an old English folk dance. And then they used that. Like the Step in Time core dance was an old English, like the core movement was actually they pulled a historic nugget to get to that. And it was the same thing for the bankers. They were pulling from songs of the time, a type of music of the time, to get to a feel for that song. And then they went from there to get to the lyrics and to get to the movements. And they unpack all of that in the documentary in a way that is so interesting. And that's a segue for me to be able to actually just give a quick comment on understanding my understanding of the production process that came from watching this documentary and made me actually appreciate the movie even more. The documentary was really a peek into the way that Walt Disney Studios worked at the time. And I will tell you, the way that I always thought movies came together, honestly, was something a little bit more linear. I always thought that maybe the writing happened, and then the acting happened, and then the music happened, or something very linear like that, you know. But that's not at all how it was going down. And I'm sure not how it goes down today. It was a very iterative process. And the music was being decided as the dialogue was being decided, as the choreography was being decided. And all of those pieces were really all alive in terms of the creation process at the same time, in a way that they could go back and revisit the music if they came up with a new dance idea. You know, or they could go back and revisit the dialogue if something happened in the animation that required them to do it. And I just thought that was really, really eye-opening, and something that made watching the movie feel even more precious. And it also helps you to understand why it takes multiple years to make a movie like this. You know, it's not a one-year process. I know this movie was at least 2.5 years, because it was 2.5 years into the process that they finally had enough of a product that they could take it for approval to the writer of the original Mary Poppins books, to Travers. And so that was only 2.5 years into the process. I don't even know how long it took for the movie to be finished. So maybe maybe this is a segue to get to the vote, y'all, you know, because that understanding of the production process is definitely something I am considering as I determine what my vote will be. But
yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it all. We talked about the acting and performances, the music.
We didn't talk about the kids. I don't. Should we spend a second on the children? It would be a miss, probably, but not to talk about the kids.
And that's another reason why I wouldn't say kids movie. I mean, the kids were there, but they weren't like, you think about when they first jumped into Chalk Baby. The kids didn't show up until they went to the merry-go-round. You know what I'm saying? So it was like
in a whole big chunk of that.
That's what I'm saying. And then when the races were happening, it was even there was still focus on Mary and Bert more. You know, Mary was the one who won. That's how we got the segue into the song Supercalifragilistic. So I'm saying they didn't feel like a focus, but I thought they did good. And I thought they were good for what they were. And there were parts I was planning on, I thought I was going to be cringy, but weren't. Because like when they were about to read the letter, their list of requirements, I was like, okay, brace yourself. This is going to be, but it wasn't. I didn't feel that way. Like when and so I feel like they did good in the context for what they were doing. But I don't think they were. The movie's called Mary Poppins, and the kids were more side actors than it's supposed to be the real focus at all.
What do you think, sis, of the kids' performance and their role in the story?
This is right there with me when it comes to like how cute Drew Barrymore was in E.T. Like, as I'm watching these two, they're so cute. And you can tell that they're not, they're mischievous in a way that is children. Children are curious. Right. They have questions and they run off, they come back, they do all these things. They're not necessarily trying to wreak any havoc, but they're just kids. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I thought that they were so cute. Every time the little voices, we're sorry, Father. I was like, they really are sorry. So I thought they were so cute.
Yeah, I agree with y'all. I thought the children, they were not in there to sing. They were not in there to dance. They were there to be cute. And they did a hell of a
mission
job.
accomplished.
Yeah,
they
were very
mission
adorable.
accomplished.
And the girl looks like somebody. I meant to research it because I'm just curious. I can't place it. I feel like she looks like an actor from today, somebody who maybe in her lineage somewhere. I don't know. I gotta
like
look that up. But I that's just a random thought from it was one of those things like, I feel like she looks like somebody.
Yes.
And I love how they
just give you all some other horrible news as we wrap, just to make sure everybody's just appropriately sad. At the end of our discussion of this delightful movie.
No, this part is sad.
The actor that played the little boy, his name was Matthew Garber. Mm-hmm. He actually passed away at the age of 21.
He was so young.
Yeah, he was so young.
What happened?
He died of hepatitis.
He got sick.
God.
He got sick. And so he wasn't in the documentary. And they addressed it as, he got sick very young. And the actress that played Jane, that played the sister, she was like, we had really grown apart. We didn't really keep in touch. And she said, and obviously I regretted that, when I found out he was sick and had passed away. But he caught hepatitis, y'all. Yeah. And his life was so short. He was born in 1956, passed away in 1977.
He did. They did an amazing job of being innocent. And I appreciate that.
They played the role. They played the role perfectly.
Yeah.
Didn't overdo it, underdo it.
Nope.
Perfect.
Nope. And I also appreciated that they didn't have there's this sibling rivalry. We're always trying to beat each other up and all these different things. It wasn't like that at all. It was almost made me question. I was like, is one older than the other, or are they twins? Like, what has happened? Like, are they fraternal twins? Like, is something going on?
Probably because they didn't have a middle child to isolate and attack.
Go to the vote, bro.
Yeah, let's just.
We don't got no time for no therapy session at the end.
I don't understand why somebody is just so hell bent on derailing
of malicious sibling behaviors.
I mean, she's still sad with all that beautiful artwork in the background. This is what we really need to discuss.
Way to soothe my soul. I have to soothe my soul.
That giant African necklace in the corner. She just.
And I don't know how
it's not enough. It's not enough. I don't know how it
shows on your. She's in the middle on my Zoom. So she's just in a perfect position to be complaining and be the focus, and deny being the focus.
Yeah,
just like always. So yeah, it's perfect.
It's fine. But I love the part when he was protecting her from the chimney sweep man, because he was get your hands off my sister, and I was like, I know that's right, Michael.
Michael's ready to go.
He was ready to go.
That's right. He was going to do whatever he could. Bro. Well, yes. I mean, I think anybody watching this podcast, it's not a real big revelation.
Oh, I wonder what they're gonna say.
How will they
we start off like, so today we're doing what are our favorite movies from
That's the
childhood.
best movie ever in history.
We watch it every
movies.
week and we dissect it.
But it does not get my umbrella. Spoiler alert. What's up with that? What's up with that? What's up with subverting expectations? No, obviously.
Gotcha. That's the thing, Wright Perspective.
Not a classic.
Not only is it a classic for me, so yes, it most certainly gets my umbrella. But you know what? It should have been a vote. Should have been between Umbrella or Turned Inside Out Umbrella. That's what the vote should have been.
Yeah.
But no, it definitely gets my umbrella. But not only that, it is a movie I will watch every now and then. Like, and I wouldn't have unless we did this. But I'm just saying, because it's amazing how there are memories of things that, first of all, can come back from that long ago. Like when they were about to punch his hand, like, just that kind of stuff came back. Or like when the nannies were getting blown away, and the one, she was like fully sprawled, like the one, and she was like one of the last ones. And I remember laughing at that. So I forgot how much of an impact, you know what I mean, like different parts had on me. But just watching as an adult, I can appreciate the performances on a different level. So it's definitely like if we were, let's say I was talking about musicals to friends or something, and I wanted to pull out an example, that's one of the ones I will pull out. So yes, it definitely gets my umbrella, definitely a classic.
Well, you all, believe it or not, when I first finished watching it, I was not completely ready to call it a classic. I really wasn't. I wasn't. And the truth is, though, that your state of mind in the moment contributes so much to your experience of watching a movie. And I think that I was distracted. I had a lot going on that day. And so I enjoyed it, but it wasn't a magical experience in watching it, And then I watched the documentary, and then I had some time to reflect. And that was when I started to realize that this movie is special to me, because of the whimsy of it. There was something that they said in the documentary that about Walt Disney's intention in making this film, but also in general, is to make something that he thinks kids would like to see, not what their parents want them to see. And that's what I thought. I thought, what, this movie lives into that. And for that reason, it's very special to me. The other thing about the documentary that again, there was so much to process for me after watching the documentary. It was appreciation for the production process, but there were also some things that, raised my eyebrow, not in a way of surprise, but in a real genuine way of like, we got to factor it in. The vast majority of the creators of that movie were white men, and that is the case when you watch any of these kind of peel backs into children's books, children's movies. It's white men determining for us what is funny, what is precious, what is beautiful. And I had to process that as well. And after I did that, I was like, what, even kind of taking that into account, there's something in this movie that is so innocent and so pure in terms of like the children's experience of just wanting attention and the journey of watching parents that are too distracted to give it to them, learn the importance of giving them some attention. There's something so innocent in that storyline that you cannot help. Well, for me, I could not help but to say, what, this movie does a really great job of teaching that lesson, telling that story, and being a movie that children would like to see. And then when we started to reflect specifically on the contributions of Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke, I mean, they are amazing in this movie. They are amazing in this movie. So I have to be honest and say that after watching it, I didn't turn off the click the remote and say yes.
Yeah, that was it.
And it wasn't like that for me, but I got there through reflection and through starting to appreciate some of the pieces of the complexity of the story and the creation of the movie. And through just starting to, with intention, celebrate Julie Andrews for her birthday, I started to think, gosh, for this to be her first feature film, girl, you did that thing, girlfriend. Okay. And in the documentary, she just talks about she didn't know camera cues. She was like, I didn't know how to do the close up, and then you do the middle range, and then you do the long range. She was like, I had to learn all of that, and then you see Dick Van Dyke reflecting and talking about how masterfully she did it, as if it was not her first feature film,
Just talent.
So anyway, it was in taking a more holistic view that I made my way to this movie being a classic for me. So it does get my umbrella.
Well, it does definitely get my umbrella. And it's just really simply because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. There were parts that I was looking for. And while I didn't have moments where I was laughing out loud, I definitely smiled as I watched the entire film and appreciated the nostalgia of it. And I do believe that it still holds up to being something that is enjoyable, and that I feel any child that, as we still have children who are innocent, would love and just enjoy the fun things, watching penguins dance on a screen and, your horse being able to jump off of a Ferris wheel. So now when you're watching that and you go to the local, a carousel, thank you. Now when you're watching it and you go to an amusement park, there's a child now thinking to themselves that, oh, I wish, this could jump off and I could ride through the rest of the amusement park, so I appreciate those types of things because they have their place and they have their purpose. So it gets my umbrella.
Well, woo, there you have it. Okay, y'all. In celebration of you, Julie Andrews, happy birthday. Mary Poppins is a classic from the Wright Perspective. This was a fun one, bro and sis. Love you. Thank you all for tuning in. We love y'all. Thank you.
Bye. Love y'all.